Sean Manaea here on the left, and then Corbin Burns here on the right. Just know Manaea is a wind-up guy, so this video right here is taken from the wind-up, and Burns, I believe, is an all-stretch guy now. So we're going to be looking at what makes these guys, in my opinion, the identification of Manaea being a driver and Burns being an accelerator. Now, there's a couple different components that I've kind of added to this mix, looking at the arm action and their ability to, and I talk about this in the ebook, and their ability to hold tension and external rotation in their drive leg. Okay, Manaea, big dude, right? I don't know his official size, I don't know his official weight, but I'm gonna go ahead. I met the dude in 2015, and I believe 6'6", maybe 250. Big dude. Also, his arm action, as you can see, as he drops here into his drive phase, goes right around his shin area. So this is why I was saying I've added this into the mix of like arm action and how that can aid in the way that you deliver the ball, right? So if your arm action upon hand separation is going to dip and it's going to be a little bit quote unquote like longer, then that's going to be a timing thing, right? So your body's going to need time your arm's going to need time to get into the position of leverage as soon as you anchor down. Now, Manaea does a great job. As we can see, what makes a driver is his ability to produce a ton of force into the ground, right? So you can see that's what he's doing here. I talk about this as well, the trunk tilt and counter rotation to help load up the drive leg. Now, this is kind of thrown out the window if you lack the movement ability to load up the drive leg in this pattern of obviously hip hinging, right? Whereas I talked about this earlier with, you can maybe shift your force vector of your drive leg if you're an accelerator. Whereas like if we saw like a Zach Plezak who doesn't load his drive leg really well, smaller guy, he's more focused on getting going down the mound rather than like holding this tension, right? Holding this external rotation. But again, so Manaea, big dude, checks the box for a driver, produces a ton of force into the ground, holds force, right? For the guys coming from the ebook, we're going to talk about this in the drive leg mechanics, but not only absorb incoming force coming down from peak leg lift, produce this force into the ground, and now we store this force. We essentially store this energy in the drive leg until probably the center cut. And this is when we'll talk about, obviously the hip rotation mechanics of the lower body mechanics in general, and is when we then internally rotate our hips, and then we transfer this to then be blocked by the front leg. Okay. So Manaea checks a lot of those potential boxes to be checked, if that made sense. And now going over to Burns, where you can see now the difference in forward momentum. Okay. So the biggest takeaway probably for guys coming from the ebook, for the players edition, obviously trying to get this whole understanding on your own, is like, just look at the initial move forward momentum and look at the increase of tempo when guys are more so accelerators. Okay. So watch how as soon as Burns lifts, he's getting going. Okay. And another thing you can notice within guys that are going to be accelerating is notice their head posture, initial move forward momentum, and how they get going, forward and obviously down the mound to increase their overall acceleration rate. Whereas you can see Manaea doesn't really cross that line, descending from peak leg lift. His emphasis is putting force into the ground. Burns is going to be putting emphasis on increasing forward acceleration. Okay. And then notice the head posture of the two in the change of this, whereas Manaea is going to shift his head a little bit back. This is where we talk about that fine line of like, are we defying forward gravity? Are we defying forward acceleration by like hip coiling and shooting back and trying to defy this and then decrease our acceleration rate? Or are we just doing this as a means to load up the drive leg and produce a ton of force into the ground? Whereas Burns, guys like DeGrom, Stroman, a lot of different guys that I would deem as more of an accelerator type. You can look at, whoa, that's a tough circle. You can look at their head posture throughout their drive phase, how it stays in the center of their body. A little shift, as you can see there with the trunk, but it's somewhat, it's mainly staying in the center of the body the entire way. Whereas obviously you can see the difference here with Manaea and Burns. And a lot of guys, for the players, we're taught a lot of different things as we kind of progress throughout this journey and this development phase. You know, certain pitching coaches talk about like, oh, I want you to have this metal rod from your head to your back hip to your back foot and hold that and stay back as long as possible. That's more of like an old school approach, honestly. Staying back, staying back, staying back. I put a lot of emphasis on this personal identification thing, looking at how your arm action works, looking at your body type. If you're trying to produce a bunch of force into the ground and you're just not a big dude, like, I just don't think that's as advantageous for you, rather than like getting forward acceleration. Now, obviously, we work towards mechanical efficiency as a whole, right? We don't try to manipulate the system all too much, but these are just little things that maybe we can start looking at to give us our best opportunity to maximize what our body is capable of doing, right? So again, as you come into front foot plant, as you see both guys in a very similar position, right? Hips into rotation, trunk is neutral, almost counter rotated. Trunk is neutral here over with Manaea. Hips are into rotation. You can see the back foot, either foot rotation or ankle eversion. You're in a very similar position, with the two. Obviously, I think accelerators are going to be more so this way with their body posture. They're reliant on this energy production system of forward acceleration rather than ground force production like a driver would be. So usually drivers, you can see their head is probably a little bit behind at anchor point. Whereas again, accelerators, their head and their overall posture is going to be a little bit maybe in front, which is going to be then producing a lot more forward acceleration to be blocked by the lead leg. So again, I don't deem one as more efficient than the other. I really do just believe it all comes down to like identifying your body type, identifying like little things, throw variations, things in the weight room that you can be like, wow, I actually move pretty quick. I have pretty good fast twitch muscle fibers that I can really, emphasize in my pitching mechanics. And just giving you guys another example of what this kind of looks like. Again, I want to stress, like, this is by no means absolutes, right? I know we live in a world seeking absolutes, but this system is no means absolutes. I just wanted to have something like somewhat close to being like, oh, that makes sense. Maybe I can apply this, and oh, boom, I've gained XYZ in my delivery because I've just kind of shifted away from this other approach that I was trying to do beforehand. So try it out. If it doesn't make sense to you, then it doesn't make sense to you, and we can just move on. That's the biggest piece. All right. So cool. All right. Much love, guys. Till next time. God bless. See ya.